Welcome to the Money is Emotional podcast with Christine Luken, the financial dignity coach. In this podcast, we help you recover a positive and peaceful relationship with your personal finances. We do this by bringing together wise money management with emotional intelligence. Join us for this journey where we navigate our relationship with money as Christine Luken draws from years of experience and guest experts to help you get to the root of your money issues.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Money is Emotional podcast. I am your host, Christine Luken. Today's episode is numbers to know before you buy a car. I'm arming you with all the information that you need to be a smart shopper at the car dealership. As usual, my producer is joining me. Bill, thanks for hanging out with me today.
Well, you're welcome. But as I told you, if you think money's emotional, car buying for me is like drama. It's not an experience I relish.
I imagine that you are not alone in saying that.
I suspect not. So I hope this information makes it a little less intimidating and a little more manageable.
Yes. Well, if you think about it, a vehicle is one of the most expensive purchases that most people make beyond their house.
Yeah.
And usually if
That's
you're buying
crazy.
a house, it might be once a decade. Sometimes, I don't know, we've been in our house for 2 decades. You're going to be shopping for a car probably more often. And so there are some very key numbers that I want people to know before they step foot in a car dealership.
Okay.
I have to tell you, I am just astounded that people just pop into the car dealership without knowing these numbers. And usually they regret at least some piece of it because it costs them money. The first set of numbers I want to talk about pertain to your current vehicle. So unless you're buying your very first car or you're going to give your current car to a friend or a family member or to charity, chances are pretty good that you're either going to be selling your car or trading in your current car as you go to buy your next car. So you want to know, what is your current car worth? Both the trade-in value and the private party sale value. Now, I love Kelley Blue Book for this. So it's just kbb.com. We're going to link that up in the show notes. It will have you plug in all the information, the year, the miles, the features, your zip code, because your zip code can actually affect the worth of the car. So for example, if you're up in the snow belt, right? There's probably going to be more wear and tear on your car than someone who lives further south. So all these things affect your car value. And you also want to fairly judge the condition that your car is in. I find that we have a tendency to overestimate the value of the things that we own.
Yeah.
Right?
Like
we'll say our car's our car is in excellent condition when it's really in good condition.
Yes.
And that can mean a difference of a couple $1,000s on the trade-in. So it's important to know that information before you go to the car dealership, especially if you think that you might trade it in. Now, I have done both scenarios where I have outright sold my car privately, and then this last time I traded my car in. And I'll tell you why I did this. Because typically, you're going to get more money if you sell your car to an individual than trading it in at the dealership. Because the person that's buying it does not need to make a profit. The dealership needs to make a profit. They have to have some margin so that they can turn around and sell it to somebody else. Yeah. I understand that. In this instance, and I hadn't known this previously because I hadn't encountered this situation before, in my state, and this might be different for different states, usually you have to pay sales tax when you buy a vehicle.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is here in Kentucky, if you do a trade-in, they only charge you sales tax on the net amount. So if you're buying a $50,000 car and they give you $10,000 for your trade-in, you only have to pay sales tax on $40,000 instead of $50,000.
Oh.
So when we looked at that number and the amount of tax that I was going to save, there was only a difference of about $200. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to have to list the car. I'm going to have strangers come over to my house. Once I find a buyer, I'm going to have to go to the bank. We're going to have to sign the title. For me, it was just like, oh, well, if I don't have to screw with all that stuff, that's easily worth $200 or $300 to just trade it in and be done with it.
To be honest with you, I have never sold a car privately because of all of those complications. I have traded cars in, and I can swear by Kelley Blue Book, and I can swear by, yes, I did overestimate the, condition of my car. It was in really good condition. It wasn't super excellent.
Right. So you want to know what your car is worth before you go into the dealership, because if this is going to be part of the negotiation, you want to make sure you're not being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
The other thing you want to know is, what exactly do you owe? What is the payoff on your car if you still have a loan on it?
Okay.
So you want to call the bank. A lot of times you can just look it up online. Now, if you are currently leasing a vehicle, it's important that you understand what your current lease term and what all those conditions are for the car.
Okay.
Because you want to know going in to the negotiations, if you're turning in a lease, is there money that's due? Are you over your mileage allowance? You need to know all of those things before you walk in to the dealership, because you don't want an unpleasant surprise.
Makes sense.
Yes.
I had a leased car once, and without going into the long details, I ended up buying it at the end of the lease. And then I later traded it in years later, as a matter of fact. But I know from going through sort of the end of lease life on that leased vehicle, there were a lot of things that I was surprised about. Yeah.
Yes. Well, most of the time you're so excited to get the new car that you're like, yeah, okay. They do tell you when you buy, they point things out, and you're just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, that's 5 years down the road. So I don't want people to be clueless when they walk into the dealership about your current car. What is its value? What are all the ins and outs of any lease or loan that you have, so you're not surprised unpleasantly.
Okay.
Now, there are also some personal financial numbers that you need to know before you go to the dealership. You're not going to be surprised by number one. It's your credit score. Because if you're getting a loan, if you're getting a lease, this is going to directly affect the cost of your car. Because,
really?
Yes. So a lot of times you will hear them say, we've got this special running. It's, I don't know if they still do 0% because of the interest rates and inflation as of the date we're recording this, but they might say like, oh, it's only a 3% or a 5%. But what they don't tell you is that only the people with the very best credit scores usually get that very best rate. And I know that from the 0% days, because I had certain clients who said, hey, we're going to shop for a new car. They're having all these end of the year sales. They're offering 0%. Then when we meet for our next session, I'll say, okay, how did it go? How'd the car buying thing go? Well, we didn't qualify for the 0%. Like, you had to have an 800 credit score. So we had to pay a little bit, right?
Yeah. I had a dealer one time threaten me. Not threaten me, but threaten me by saying, your credit score better be perfect. And I'm like, I just met you, and I don't, and my credit score is pretty good. And I looked at him and I thought, I don't want to do business with you. And I ended up walking out of the dealership. But I know that you did it. In fact, just for those folks who've been listening for a while, you actually did an episode on demystifying credit scores. So for those of you who are listening, you can go back to that episode. Yes. And get a better understanding of your credit score and the role it plays in your financial life, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because that is important to know. If you're not paying cash, you need to know approximately what your credit score is, because it's going to affect the deal that you get. And it might affect the fact that you might not be able to get traditional financing through your bank or through the dealership. If you've got really bad credit, you might get stuck doing the buy here, pay here kind of car financing, which I like to call the mafia car
Christine.
financing.
Can you give us the money right now?
That's the thing where they have, like, they put the GPS tracker in your car, and they've got a remote so they can shut your car down and come get it,
Holy cow. Wow. No.
Yes. So the second number you need to know is, how much money will you put down on the car in addition to any trade-in?
Okay.
So if you're going to buy or you're going to finance, you might say, okay, I've got this car, it's worth about 10 grand, but I'm also going to put down an extra 5 grand in cash so I can be financing a lower amount. Now,
gotcha.
I got to tell you, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people finance as much as they could finance.
So they come in and they get what they get for their trade-in, and then the rest of it they're going to finance.
Yep. I'd say that happens more often than not. And then the third personal number you need to know is, what's your budget for this car?
Of course. Well, it seems obvious. I mean, you run into a lot of people who don't give that consideration.
No, they don't, because they're shopping the payment, not the price of the car.
Okay.
And so you want to know, and yes, you do need to understand what is the maximum payment amount that is going to fit into our monthly budget. But you also need to know, like, what's your top dollar? I like to call it, what's your walkaway price? So if someone says this car is 60 grand, you're like, whoa, no way. Not doing it. I'm walking away from this deal. So you want to know your credit score, your down payment, and whatever your top dollar budget number is for this car. So my husband's like you. He does not like going to the car dealership. He doesn't like negotiating. I think it's amusing. And I do. I think it's amusing.
I'm taking you with me the next time I go buy a car.
And I'll tell you this because of a couple reasons. So my ex-fiance, who we talked about quite a bit in the first episode of Money is Emotional, he was a used car salesman.
Oh, okay.
My brother is also a salesman. Now, he doesn't sell cars. So I know all of the tricks. And we're going to talk about those later that the salespeople will use against you. And whenever my husband needs to buy a car in the dealership, typically, with the exception of this last one, because he had to buy his dream car from a dealership actually down in Tennessee and have it delivered because there weren't any up here. But the last time he was car shopping, we were looking for a truck for him, and he had seen several that he liked, and he said, here's my top dollar for this truck. And he's like, anything that you can negotiate down, like high five, right? Like that'll be a bonus. And so I'm like, great, I'll be the bad guy. I'll do all the questioning. And so it was very interesting because the first car that he liked, I negotiated like $6,000 or $7,000 off the price.
Wow.
And we ended up walking away from it. Because there were things about it he didn't like. And then the second time, he told me what his top dollar price was. And I think I got him down a little less than $3,000. But this guy was a much better salesperson. He was a much better negotiator. So, but we want to know these numbers even before we walk in, right? To start that negotiating process.
I understand that. It makes sense so far. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so we also want to research the vehicle that we want to buy. So we know, first of all, is it in the realm of possibilities? Can we even afford this car? First of all.
Yeah, I would I would like the top of the line Porsche, please.
Yes.
Until I look at the price, and then I'm like, well, maybe not,
Well, when I bought my Alfa Romeo Giulia, I had people asking me, "Ooh, is that the quadrifoil?" And I'm like, "No, that was like twice the price." It's like, no, not that one. Christine does not need that much speed. She's going to kill herself or get like 500 speeding tickets. Yes. But you do want to research the car, right? This is the car I want. These are the features I want. This is the price I can expect to pay for that. And as I said, we want to shop the total price, not just the payment. And you need to look at the total cost of the vehicle, right? Because you've got the base, you've got all the options, right? You talked about the last time you were buying a car and they were talking about different maintenance packages that you can potentially buy, taxes. And you also need to consider how much is your insurance going to go up because of this new car.
Oh, yeah.
So, Nick and I felt the pain of that.
That can be a real shocker if you were unfamiliar. It can be a real shocker. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing that most people need to understand is that leasing is the most expensive way to drive a car.
Mm-hmm.
When people are shopping payments, it seems like it's the cheapest way. Like it's less expensive to lease a car than it is to buy a car. But here's the problem. At the end of the arrangement, when you're leasing, you have no car. When you're buying, at the end of your payment arrangement, you have a car that's still worth something.
Yes.
So it's basically like a long-term rental agreement.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Now, there are instances where it can make financial sense, especially if you own a business, where that might be a good thing to do. So, for example, with my family's business, they've got a fleet of trucks where they're dispatching service people. And they need to make sure that there's minimal downtime and maintenance on those trucks. So those trucks get turned in every 3 years. And so for them, they have they've got a fleet agreement with Enterprise, and like everything is all wrapped up in that because their business depends on being able to dispatch service people and bill for their time. So there are times when leasing can be the right decision.
Yeah, and in the case of a business like what you're discussing now, I mean that there are accounting favorabilities for a business too, because they can these are costs they can be used to offset other things, which is very different from Bill and Christine's normal personal lives.
Exactly. Because like I said, after the lease, you got to surrender the car or buy it out. And as we talked about before, it's important to pay attention to all of the lease details, like what's the mileage allowance, what's the penalties, what's the buyout price. I actually saw during COVID, because the price of used cars shot way up.
Yeah.
I saw people who were buying out their leases and then turning around and making a $10,000 profit on those cars.
Smart.
Because they had locked in their buyout price for 3, 4, 5 years ago. And then because of COVID, car production was paused, right? Well, businesses were closed. And so all of a sudden people were looking for cars, and the value of used cars shot way up, which, on the surface, you would think, how would people getting sick affect used cars, right? We saw all kinds of crazy things during COVID.
Oh, we saw all kinds of crazy things. The ads up here for used cars, and we'll buy your car and pay you all kinds of crazy money for your car, or just like every commercial break on the radio.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and also understand that. So I had a client not that long ago where she had gone in to have her car serviced, and someone at the dealership had said, I can see that you've got another year on your lease, but it looks like you're getting close to your maximum mileage. And, you're going to start to incur some mileage penalty. So you might want to look at trading your lease in, right? Of course, it certainly behooves them to say that. And
it's a very self-interested statement there.
Yeah. And so she had talked to somebody at the dealership about, price options for a newer version of her vehicle. And I mean, it was really getting her wound up. She was getting like really worked up about it and anxious about it. And I said, can you send me your lease agreement so I can check into this penalty? So when we looked at like, okay, if she were to get into a new car, how much money she'd have to come up with and what her payment would change. If she had to eat the mileage penalty, she would still be better off than she would be to buy another car. And then as we started talking, she said, you know what? I really love my car. I don't want to trade it in. And so I'm like, well, you know what? Guess what? The mileage penalty doesn't even matter if that's the case. If you plan on buying this car out at the end, then the mileage penalty doesn't even exist. So they were basically like scaring her into making a bad decision because she didn't know the numbers. And then once we crunched the numbers, it was like, oh, okay, well, when it comes, at the end of the lease, then I'll just buy it out. Her payment would actually drop. And she said, my goal would be to pay it off early, right? Because, you can go online and you can go to bankrate.com or, NerdWallet or one of those websites, and they've got all those financial calculators of, okay, if I'm going to finance X amount at the current interest rates, like what are my approximate car payments going to be? We figured that all out. So it is really important to know those numbers. So the other thing you want to know, the other final number you want to know about the car you're buying is the cost of ownership.
Ah, yes.
So there's an amazing site, Edmunds, EDMUNDS.com.
Yes.
We'll link
That's the
that up.
place.
They have a cost of car ownership breakdown. So you basically put in your car, you put in your zip code, all the options, and it basically tells you the cost to own. So I actually did that before we got on our call for my car.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'm assuming that it is saying, like, if I was to buy this car this year today, that this would be my cost of ownership. So my car's a 2020. I bought it in 2021. It basically sat on the showroom floor for almost a year. But what's very interesting is, it'll tell you the insurance costs, the maintenance, the repairs, the financing costs. So you can take that out if you're paying cash. But what I thought was really interesting, and I was glad my husband suggested this, he said he was worried about me buying a luxury car, a foreign car that he couldn't work on, or that might be hard for him to work on because he's very handy. But obviously, some of the cars, they're getting a lot more complicated these days. And
they're basically rolling computers at this point, to be honest.
I know, they are. And so he strongly encouraged me to buy the maintenance package. So that's what I did. I bought a 4-year maintenance package. It included all of the maintenance. Basically, the only thing it doesn't cover is tires and a battery. And I want to say that I spent maybe $2,400 on that. And when I look at this cost of ownership, it's saying between maintenance and repairs for the first 3 years that I should be spending close to $6,000 or $7,000.
Wow.
In those first 3 years. The only thing that I have purchased is a battery. Less than $300.
I can do that math. Yes. Wow.
Yes. So I definitely saved money by doing that. So sometimes, I know a lot of times people say, like, oh, don't buy the maintenance package or the extended warranty. It really depends on the car. And so if you can look into that cost of ownership and it will give you the estimate of maintenance and repairs, it may actually be a good deal for you to buy that maintenance package or that extended warranty package.
Dare to enter the Wealthy Woman Book Club, where answers exist to forbidden questions, where women of all ages and income secretly gather, where knowledge is shared, where possibilities are explored, where women claim their power. Dare to stay a spell in the Wealthy Woman Book Club. In this place, we lift each other up. In this place, we start dreaming again. In this place, we see financial miracles. In this place, we grow through the glory and the failure. In this place, we step into a new identity. Dare to champion the Wealthy Woman Book Club. We're creating a future where women are financially empowered across the globe. We're creating a future where our daughters stand on equal financial footing with our sons. We're creating a future where we purchase with our principles rather than price tags. We're creating a future where we use the power of money for the benefit of people and the planet. Welcome to the Wealthy Woman Book Club. Dare to come in, woman. Come in. Join us at wealthywomanbookclub.com.
Yes. So, as a guy who just spent a lot of money on a 60,000-mile service, yes. That's a smart thing to do, actually.
Mm-hmm. Now, the next point I want to make is if you get financing through the dealer, you're actually buying two products. You're buying the car and you're buying the loan or the lease. So I recommend settling on a final price for the car first before you discuss dealer financing. Because they will say things to you like, well, what kind of payment do you need to be in? What's it going to take for me to get you into this car today?
Yeah. Are you giving it away for free? Could I have it for free? Would that work?
And I do highly encourage, before you go car shopping, is to check your local bank, whoever you do have your major banking relationship with, and see what their car loan deals are like. What sort of interest rates, what sort of financing can you get? Especially if you are a member of a credit union. Many times they can actually beat the dealer financing. If the dealer says that they are offering 0% financing or 2% financing, just be wary of that. The car dealership is in business to make money. So they're making it up somewhere. They're either pumping up the price of the car or, as I said before, only people with an 800 credit score are actually going to get that promotional price. So separate the car negotiations from the financing. And I will say, when you're buying a higher end luxury car, like an Alfa Romeo, there's no negotiating. Like, the sticker price is this. It isn't. It's like, the sticker price is the sticker price. The price that's on the website is the price. You either want it or you don't. That's it.
I kind of like that, but I kind of like that because I'm a guy who doesn't want to go in there and haggle and argue.
So the final thing I want to talk about is I want you to understand your emotional triggers during the car buying process. Now, this is the Money is Emotional podcast, and yes, we are all about crunching numbers, but if I did not mention this piece of it, like, shame on me, right?
Right.
Car salesmen are trained to use certain psychological tricks to get you to buy. I know all of them because I dated one. I was engaged to a used car salesman. So here are some of the tricks that they use. They use certain incentives to get you to come into the dealership. We'll talk about that in a minute. They use the good guy, bad guy scenario. They use scarcity. And sometimes they will use your own words in their favor. So let me break these down for you.
Okay.
When I bought my last Hyundai Sonata, I was looking online and I found the car that I wanted. And there were up to $2,500 in incentives. So the price that they had on there, in very tiny print at the bottom, it said, price includes $2,500 of incentives. So I go to the dealership. I pull it up on my phone. I was like, this is the car I want. I'm willing to write you a check for this right now. And he's like, okay. And he's like, are you a current Hyundai owner? And I said, yes, I am. He's like, great. He said, are you a veteran? No. Are you disabled? No. Are you a recent college graduate? No. He looks at me and he's like, okay, you're not, I can tell by looking at you, you're not a minority. He's like, okay, so I can give you $500 off of this price. And I said, wait, that's like a $2,000 difference. And he said, well, you don't qualify for this one because you're not a veteran. You don't qualify for this one because you're not a minority. You don't qualify for this one because you're not a recent college graduate. And you don't qualify for this one because, which one did I miss? Disabled.
You're not a minority.
So I'm like, okay, so I literally have to be a current Hyundai owner who's a recent college graduate, who's also a veteran, who's disabled, and is a minority. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, that's an effing unicorn. You know that, right? Like, This is false advertising. I was so pissed.
What was his reaction? I just have to ask. I don't want you to sidestep.
I mean, he was just kind of looking at me like, don't make the rules, lady. Like, I just have to have proof that you're all of these.
Oh my gosh.
To give you this prize. So, I did buy the car, but not until the next day. And I was not very happy about that particular car buying experience. I was happy about the car that I bought. The other trick that they use is the good guy, bad guy, or the good cop, bad cop. So how this plays out is you're negotiating with the car salesman. And he's like, I really want to get you in this car. Like, what's the best that you can do? How much can you put down? Can we give you this for your thing? But then he's got to go ask somebody. So he's like,
oh yeah.
He's like, okay, so if you can do this, would you just like put your initials here and I'll go check with my manager and see what we can do. Like, I'm on your side, buddy. It's me and you against the mean manager.
I'm with you.
Right? So this actually happened when we bought Nick's truck. And we did this 2 different times. And I finally stood up and I said, if you are not the person that can make this deal, then you need to go get your manager and bring him out here because I'm not going to continue to do this with you. We're going to get up and leave. And Nick's like looking at me like, I really want this truck.
Man, Christine, I really want this truck.
But I did. I just called him out. I was like, look, and it wasn't me. I'm like, look, if you're not the person to do this deal and you don't have the authority to negotiate this price, then you need to bring me the person who can. So
what happened?
We came to an agreement. I think we got it was close to $3,000 off of the sticker price, and we paid cash for it. So yeah. Now the other trick they use is scarcity. They'll say things like, someone else is coming later this afternoon to buy this vehicle.
Yeah.
Or to look at this vehicle.
I've been told
this is the only one we got.
Yeah, this is the only one that was ever made, and there are 2 families coming in this afternoon that really want this car. Yes, literally, I've been told that.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I believe you. I totally believe you. When I was buying my Hyundai, I had gone in on a Friday evening, and I mean, I was leaving the dealership around like 6:30 and maybe they were open till 7. And I told him, I said, I need to sleep on this and I will get back to you tomorrow. And he's like, well, we got the big tent sale tomorrow. And he's like, I can't guarantee that it's going to be here. And I'm thinking, you close in a half an hour. If I want it, I'm going to call you at 9 when you open and bring you a check. But they know that plays on your emotions, right? If you're emotionally attached to this car and they say, well, someone else might buy this, and you feel yourself like, no.
No, not my car.
Yes. So the final one they use is using your own words in their favor. And this is actually kind of I see more advanced salespeople doing this.
Okay.
I know a salesperson is really good when they do this. And the guy that we bought Nick's truck from, he was like this. So as soon as we get out, Nick says, well, I'm looking at this truck. And he says, oh, he's like, awesome. He's like, what are you using the truck for? And Nick's like, oh, it's to tow my boat. So then he starts saying things like, well, you know what? This truck has X towing capacity. You know why this is perfect for towing the boat? Like, how long is your boat? How much does your boat weigh? Oh, this would be perfect to tow that. And then he tells about like, okay, can you see how the mirrors, how they telescope out? That is going to make it so much easier for you to be able to back the boat into the lake. And so he's playing into Nick's words about, I'm going to use this for my boat. He's basically painting this picture of how this truck is perfect for
exactly that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the key to being a good negotiator, and this applies to anything, this is beyond just cars and boats and motorcycles, is information, patience, and the third one's going to surprise you. Silence. Don't talk too much.
That First one all, does not surprise me. That one does not surprise me, and I will tell you why. Because I spent many years as a reporter. And the most important thing reporters can do most of the time is shut up.
Yes, because people are uncomfortable with silence, and they will start filling in information. And, what's funny, I love to pick on Dave Ramsey. However, he had an amazing story back in the day. Now, this was when I was teaching his Financial Peace University, like back in the early 2000s. He told this story of he wanted to see how much he could keep his mouth shut at the car dealership to see how much information the salesperson would unwittingly divulge about a vehicle. So he went up to the dealership and, he's just outside wandering around. He comes up on a Jeep and he acts like he's interested in it. So this guy comes out and he's like, "Oh, you interested in the Jeep?" And he's like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah. How you doing? You having a good day?" And he's just chatting. And so Dave is pretty much just like nodding at him and saying like, "Uh-huh." He's not saying anything more than a one-syllable word. And because he kept quiet, when the guy was like, "Well, what are you thinking? Like the price is this, blah, blah, blah." He just shut his mouth and like started really scrutinizing the car and looking around. And as he was doing this, the guy was like giving up information about the car and dropping the price. Like he said, finally it got so awkward, because he had been only giving like yes, no, and grunts to this guy. Yeah. The guy had come down off the price by like $7,000 and admitted that the Jeep had been in an accident.
Wow. Amazing.
Yes. So, silence is golden when you are negotiating because most people are uncomfortable with silence and they will sometimes unwittingly give up information because they feel like you're pulling away when you're silent, even if you're not. It's pretty interesting.
Now, nature abhors a vacuum, and silence is like a vacuum, so it immediately does. It draws interesting things into the conversation, as it were.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, just being aware of, am I emotionally attached to this car? Do I not like confrontation when it comes to negotiations? That's when it helps to either have a friend or a spouse or a partner come with you. I've had many single women, take their brother car shopping just to make sure that they're not getting screwed over because they don't know as much about cars as their dad or their brother. That's one of the reasons why Nick likes taking me car shopping because he's like, all right. He's like, I hate negotiating with people. I hate beating people up on price. Here's how much I want to spend. If you can get that or better, we're good. And I'll just point at you and be like, she's the authority in this negotiation.
There you go.
So if you know that's you can take somebody like me and have them help you. So
take a buddy with you. Not only know your numbers and be armed with information, there is nothing wrong with taking somebody along with you who either knows more or likes this process. That's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. And, just having awareness of your own emotional triggers and these car sale tactics That's half the battle, really.
Yeah.
The other half is knowing the numbers. So don't make a car buying decision that you'll regret later. Arm yourself with the numbers, the knowledge, and the emotional fortitude to be an intelligent consumer.
That's fantastic. This is a good conversation. And actually, some of this I knew in the back of my mind, and other stuff, I did not know some of that. So this was a good conversation. Christine, for the people who are listening to this podcast who or maybe are new or who've never, encountered you before, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, hop over onto my website, christineluken.com. And if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can go to christineluken.com/apply. This is a small piece of what I help my clients with when they've got decisions to make over car buying, leases ending. I have talked to clients literally at the car dealership saying, okay, here's the numbers on if we lease it, here's the numbers if we buy it. And I am literally crunching the numbers on the calculator while they are sitting across from the salesperson.
Awesome. That is so great.
Of course, you can also join the Wealthy Woman Book Club, because we are having conversations like this on an ongoing basis. And during our 2 live coaching calls every month, people ask me questions like this, where we can actually go over real life scenarios so that you are making better financial decisions in your day-to-day money interactions, whether it's car buying or something else.
Well, how do people do that? How do the women who are listening do that one? Join the book club?
Yeah, they can go to wealthywomanbookclub.com, or if you just go to my website, it is going to be there front and center. And also, by the time this episode comes out, my latest book will be published and available. You can also get that right there on the website if you click on the book tab, Provider Money, nice. Pleasure Money, The Energetics of Personal Finance. So for all the good stuff, go to christineluken.com, and we've got it all linked up in the show notes as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And for those of you who are listening to this podcast and you've never heard Christine before and you're not a subscriber, hit the follow button. That way you will be a subscriber. And then every time Christine drops a new episode of her podcast, you're notified and you can listen to it. And believe me, these episodes are all worth listening to. And don't forget, go back. I can't remember the episode number.
It's 16.
But the one on demystifying your credit score is a good 16. One to listen to. Episode 16. There's lots of reasons to be here, and we want you here. We welcome you here, as a matter of fact. And if you like it, tell other people about it, by the way. I mean, word of mouth, we'll take that as a promotional tool. Thank you so much. Until next time, I'm Bill Tucker. On behalf of Christine, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen today and remind you that you can go out today and make today a great day or not. It's your choice, and it's yours to make. Thank you so much, and until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Money is Emotional podcast. To get in touch, visit our website at www.christineluken.com or drop us a line at hello@christineluken.com. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Christine Luken. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your advisor, tax professional, or other qualified financial professional with any questions you may have regarding your personal finances.